specifically, someone said, does anyone even care who's the best? I thought we all liked upsets and like seeing new players in top 8s, right? Yeah, there's an arcade stick here. Oops. With the wire all fucked up too. I should probably fix that. And I thought to myself, I don't know a single person who actively wants to see worse play in a top 8. Like, I think early game or early tournament, right? So this coming Friday, tomorrow, or I guess maybe today, whenever this goes on YouTube, Combo Breaker will have just started. So it'd be really cool to see some of your friends beat people they're not supposed to beat in bracket, right? Some of your actual IRL homies, some of the people that you root for but aren't usually super great, right? I would love to see my friend Walter beat Hotashi or Umisho, right? I would love to see that. Do I think Walter's going to? I mean, maybe he's pretty solid, but I digress, right? I like those things, and everyone likes those things, but I think there's a point where the upset becomes way less important than the actual outcome of the tournament. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. There we go. Where the outcome of the tournament becomes way more important than the actual upset that people say is so very important to everyone, right? And I say that because we have a thing that we've had for ages, very, very important to most people, I'd say. It's called seeding. I think that without seeding, I'm moving that. It's very big and in the way. Firstened? I don't know how to say that. You guys fight amongst yourself for who's first. I don't care. So, seeding doesn't just affect the players, right? It also affects the spectators, right? And I think what people don't think about is that seeding is basically a measure to keep all of the top talent at the end of the bracket together, right? So the way a bracket is made, and you can kind of look at it the same way that a bracket is made in something like, I like the aesthetic, the fourth, I can't do that. The way a bracket is made, right, if you look at 16 players, is the way it's supposed to work in a properly seeded bracket when it comes to fighting games and even card games and basketball, right? The basketball playoffs. The number one seed, the number one highest ranked player, team, whatever, will play the lowest ranked team or player. That is how seeding works for tournaments almost all the time, right? So it would go 1, 16, 2, 15, 3, 14, so on and so forth, until the only people who are evenly matched are 7 and 8, or in a top 8 sense, 3 and 4, right? It would be 3 and 4 or 4 and 5. I'm sorry, it'd be 4 and 5. My bad. Oops, I misspoke, right? And people think that that's 100% just for the players, right? Oh, it's to keep all the top players at the top because they've earned it. Those are their accolades. And without that structure, we wouldn't have the same number of large faces in top 8. Wrong. We'd probably still pretty much have the same amount of those players in the top 8. They might just have to claw back through losers, right? Like if you accidentally put 1 and 2 versus each other first round, now they can't run into each other again until way later in the bracket, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like if you put 1 and 2 against each other in like a 16, they wouldn't run into each other if first seed doesn't lose until winners grand finals? Yeah, they could make it all the way back to grand finals without running into first place again because they are in the loser side of the bracket. Now, that also is a measure to ensure that at the beginning of tournaments, there's a lot of cool matches to watch because you can see a pro player versus a not so pro player, or a very mid-tier player versus another relatively mid-tier player, right? Because like I said, the middle talent, right, 4 and 5, or 63 and 64, I guess it would be 64 and 65 in like a 128, will be the ones that are going to be playing each other the most. One is always pub stomping the lowest, and the middle bracket is always very, very close to each other, right? And that ensures that for the beginning of tournaments, that maybe some of the matches aren't as high flying, they're not as exhilarating. A lot of times there's a lot of like downtime, and it really has to be carried more by the commentators. But towards the later stages of the tournament, the matches really carry themselves, right? A commentator will exist and will have things to say, and there will be really cool analysis and like matchup stuff that really couldn't be explained at a lower level because a lot of these players won't be doing the right things. But the high level, they will be, right? So you get to see all the top talent. And not only does it, one, help top players, but it also helps spectators. We want to see good matches. Everyone says, oh, well, you know, who cares about who's the best? I want to see upsets. I want to see Johnny Donuts beat Daigo Umehara. That's what I want to see. And as much as they want that, they also want to see Daigo in the top 8, right? So if Johnny Donuts beats Daigo because Daigo had to fight, I don't know, Sokka round 1 of a Street Fighter 6 tournament because it was misseeded, everyone would be upset because now there's only Johnny Donuts, and Johnny Donuts probably isn't going to go very far, and Daigo's completely out of the tournament when 0-2 versus Sokka and Johnny Donuts, right? Or vice versa, how Idom and Punk in one of the upsets making me think of upset tummies. Idom and Punk had to play for losers top 8 for, I think it was the Capcom North American online qualifier. Everyone was expecting them to be grand finals. They were expecting that to be first and second seed fighting each other, grand finals, or at worst, winners finals. But it ended up being a fight for winner takes 8th and loser goes home. Right? And that totally changed the entire spectacle of the tournament and like the way people pictured that bracket. Now, there'd be ways to remedy that, of course, but I think the big thing is just understanding that seeding is not like a player privilege, right? Because the way people think of seeding, just like the way people think of everyone worried about the top end when it comes to payouts and the top end when it comes to, well, I don't want Johnny Donuts beating Daigo, so let's make it first to 3 because maybe Daigo will run it back. Maybe he lost 2-0, but now he'll sweep Johnny Donuts 3-0 because he's the better player, right? In that instance, these are the kind of arguments that come up, and people were throwing seeding into that argument. They were like, well, you know, if upsets are what everyone wants to see and top players already have all these other privileges, like, you know, being able to choose what kind of brackets they have and things like that, which is not entirely true. It's seeded by a panel, and that panel chooses because they understand who's strong, who's not, and regional differences, things like that. Anyways, there's also a lot more that goes into seeding than just the strength of players. For reference, if I go to an out-of-town tournament with 5 homies, right? Let's say I take 5 or 6 homies to like a 32-man locals or a 32-man little podunk regional, right? Nothing big. That city would more than likely not, even if me and my friends are close to each other in skill, put us together round 1. We drove in together. We are from the same city, more than likely, even if power level wise, right? Like say I'm the best player in the room and and say Mean Buffalo is the second best player in the room. They're probably, I'm sorry, and Mean Buffalo is the worst player in the room. My bad. I'm sorry. This analysis sucks. They're probably not going to put me versus Mean Buffalo round 1. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I forgot if I'm the best player, I have to play the worst player. Oops. So because of the way that seeding is usually working towards a good spectator experience, you have to think about that, right? So not only are we getting high octane matches, not only are we getting high stakes matches towards the later part of the bracket, we also get to see better adaptation, right? I think that's why, unfortunately, look, in a perfect world, I would say we should just run Swiss for fighting games. Perfect world. We don't have the setups for that, right? Or we should run, like, I like Swiss because if I'm being real, when you enter a fighting game tournament, 25%, is it 25%? 25% of the people 50% of the people who play round 1 will go to losers. Okay? So that means 25% of the people who play will be eliminated by round 2. Round 2, 25% of the total tournament will be eliminated, which means that if you were going to play in the tournament and have fun and you didn't really care about the outcome, you just wanted to play games, you don't get to play a lot of games, right? Minimum is 2. Maximum is the entire length of the bracket, whether it be 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds, 10 rounds at some tournaments, 13 or 14 if you're coming from losers, right? Because you do play significantly more matches if you're coming from the loser side early. So try not to do that. But with Swiss, you just play it out until top cut, right? You play 16 rounds of Swiss over 2 days, and then the third day, it's top 8 or top 16 or top 32. And that ensures that if you want to keep playing, even if you're playing poorly, you can keep playing. You can maybe mend your record, or you will maybe mend your record, or you will just keep playing to have fun. And I think the coolest thing about Swiss is a lot of times when it comes to spectator sports, right? And the FGC is one big, giant spectator sport. Like, tournaments are a very big deal for the FGC. They're kind of what keeps our esports afloat, like, if we're being quite honest, right? Like, the local scenes aren't really doing a lot. Like, they're not doing a lot for eyes when it comes to people seeing these games, right? So these larger tournaments, it's hard to sponsor players. Like, it's hard to, like, be an organization like Razer or Evil Geniuses or Logitech or HP. I'm trying to think of, like, computer companies, Intel, right? I'm trying to think of companies that would feasibly sponsor a player, Red Bull, because your player more than likely will have limited screen time up until top 16 or top 8, because there's just so many matches that they want to try to cover that it just doesn't feel feasible to put the same player on screen over and over, right? More than likely, you're going to see, and you're going to want to see as spectators, different matches. You don't want to see the same names over and over and over. And what Swiss does to remedy that is, for round 1, unfortunately, kind of just random, right? But with Swiss, the way it works is slowly but surely, the better players end up towards the top, or at least the players that were playing better that day end up towards the top tables, the higher numbers, or the lower numbers, and then the lower numbers, no, the higher numbers. So table 1 would be the 2 best players playing against each other for that round, and table 100 would be the 199th on the 200th best player, or the 200th player. I can't even call him the best player at that point. The worst player and the second worst player in the room playing against each other. So then you can start to weed out who's playing well for the day and who's not, right? It becomes a matter of, if you stay at the top tables, or if you stay in the higher, in the lower numbers when it comes to the actual placings, then you get more screen time. Like, maybe not you personally, but you have a higher chance of it. It's very hard to do that in like a dynamic format, because let's be real, what are other kinds of cheese? Cheddar, pepper jack, Romano, Parmesan, provolone. A lot of cheese. There's a lot of cheese. I actually don't understand why we call that format that we use for card games Swiss. But when it comes to casuals, right? Because I think something we need to remember is that the back of the FGC is like built. Is Romano not a type of cheese? Am I wrong? The FGC is like built on the mozzarella. Is like built off the back of casuals, right? So casuals are the vast majority. Casuals and casually competitive players are like the vast majority, the backbone of tournaments, right? I don't think most people who go to a tournament, if I'm being quite honest, show up thinking, this is my day to win. 600, I've just never heard it before. I thought I was right. Okay. 600 people, and you know what? I'm going to be the guy that wins this. This is my day to win. Most people who show up to a fighting game tournament aren't thinking that. What they're thinking is, you know what? I got homies who are going. I can meet some cool people. I could play some games offline. I should probably not sit in front of my computer this whole weekend. Let's go out and do something cool. Let's go to a convention, like a convention-style tournament, or like a very chill, relaxed, more arcadey feel, or the wrestling ring feel of CEO, right? Like, just going out, doing something, hanging out with people, and being around like-minded individuals. Most people are not going to tournaments to say, I'm the best player in the room, I want to win. And if I'm being quite honest, best of 3 doesn't suit them. Best of 5 doesn't suit them. Swiss does. Round robin is more than likely too much. Like, round robin is just something that is absolutely unfeasible to run in like an open bracket tournament that's like more for like invitationals or qualifiers that you have to like earn a qualification spot for. Round robin makes sense for that, or like group stage into top 8 bracket, something like that. But I think when it comes to like actually thinking about the casual community, I think something like round robin actually makes a lot more sense. Unfortunately, like I said, we just don't have the logistics for it. Like, you need a ridiculous amount of setups because you need 200 setups for the, like, if there's, I don't know, 400 entrants, you need 200 setups for the whole day. Gouda is a type of cheese. Yes. You need 400 setups for the entire day, which just seems like too many to dedicate just specifically to one game, right? What about Munster? I just said Munster. I forgot that that's a type of cheese. I always thought that that was just a made-up word, and then I looked it up. I was like, what the fuck is that? There's a bunch of different weird names for cheeses. Just like there's a bunch of different weird names for players. Look at you guys in my. What about Munster? I read that like Rush. Is that fucked up? Personally, I understand why we run things the way we do because, of course, we're under massive time constraints and whatever. But I don't know. I feel like with the massive scale of the FGC growing and growing and growing, like we have already one really big game that's been doing well in a lot of major tournaments, right? I think Guilty Gear Strive has been doing really well. As much as I don't like it, I do think that right now it's kind of the backbone game of the FGC. And if its numbers stay or only slightly drop when Street Fighter 6 comes out, this is going to be a huge influx of players. And once again, all of those players, most of those players, are going to be going 0-2, 1-2, 2-2. And for the amount of money that you spend on an event, right, it's kind of shitty. But for the spectator, I think it works out just fine, right? We get to see some funny, quirky matches in the beginning and towards the later stages of the tournament. With a few upsets barring, we're going to see the highest level of competition for these games. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because we've been doing things for so long that it's hard to really change them without big pushback. But those changes could make a huge difference to the tournament, like the tournament lifestyle for a lot of these players, right? People have talked about wanting a more consistent way for players to show that they're the best, or that they deserve to make it to a top 8, or that they should be higher in the brackets or place better. And I think like round robin kind of does that in like a really weird, crazy way. Round robin absolutely does that. And I think maybe in a perfect world, in an open bracket system, maybe round robin pools, right? Not round robin, I'm sorry. Swiss. Saying round robin. Cheez-Its? Cheez-Its are pretty good. I like Cheez-Its. I had some the other day. White cheddar ones. I think that... Wait, why is GGST trending on Twitter? Anyways, I think something like bigger pools, right? I think it's like 32-man pools. Say they do 64-man pools and they do 5 rounds of Swiss. Cheez-Its or Cheese Nips? Cheez-Its. So they do 5 rounds of Swiss into the top 4 make it out of that pool, right? Which would be the same as normal, but instead you are guaranteed to play 5 matches. It doesn't matter if you're good or if you're bad or if you're broke or if you are bad with your money. It's only $5 a month. I'm sorry. Cheetos is its own cheese too. I don't know if Cheetos are supposed to be cheddar, aren't they? Supposed to be like artificial cheddar, like cheddar popcorn, like jalapeno cheddar popcorn or whatever. I could go for some popcorn right now. Anyways, the system we have works for the vast majority of people, right? So it works for the spectators, who is a greater sum than the competitors, and it works for the highest level of competition, which we don't really want to like have super random shit at the end of a tournament, because then the spectators aren't happy, and then the people who are grinding the game also aren't happy, right? So 2 of the 3 bases are perfectly covered in this system, right? I think the big issue with something like round robin, something like Swiss. I'm trying not to say Swiss because you guys keep talking about cheese. The Swiss tournament format is that the matches feel significantly lower stakes, right? Because in a really large event, Swiss is a cheese. Swiss is indeed a cheese. It's also tournament format. In the worst way possible, like in the most fucked up way possible, the beginning rounds basically don't fucking matter. In a really long format, right, where it's 16 rounds or 20 rounds, those early you could probably go 0-2 and then win out and make a top 16 or top 32. So it becomes very hard to like choose matches to like put on stream. But after that, once again, the matches that are going to be on stream, as long as you keep following the top tables, will get better and better. And it allows players to be sponsored because they're more likely to show up on stream if they're stronger, because they will be at the top tables with the higher placings. So that's just how that would work. And that would cover every base except for TOs, right? So when it comes to like tournaments, there's so many moving parts. Like, I love thinking about it because I've been a TO, I've been a commentator, I've been a spectator. I'm still a spectator. Every fucking weekend that there's a tournament, I'm a spectator. I got 3 fucking monitors. I'm watching at least 6 brackets. 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. Maybe even 4, 4, and 4. Who knows, right? I'm new watching a lot. And I enjoy watching, and I enjoy listening, and I enjoy looking for high-level play. But on the TO side, that sounds like a logistics nightmare. Like, I could see smaller events totally running something like the Swiss tournament format, but I don't think it works for these super high-level tournaments. It's really unfortunate because it helps with sponsors, it helps with top players, it helps with casuals. In that, the only thing that doesn't work out is logistics for TOs. That's it. That's the only thing that doesn't work, right? And it works super well in card games because all you need is table space and chairs, right? Because guess what? I provide this, I provide my deck, and I provide my mat. That's it. Just table space and chairs. Unfortunately, it's significantly harder when it comes to fighting game tournaments, right? Because you need a monitor, a laptop, or a console, and you need, I don't know, an hour, a 2-hour block. I'm truly wondering how fast Swiss would be. Let's pull up a calculator. I'm truly wondering how fast it would be if you just did 5 rounds of Swiss, right? You guys give me a rough estimate of how long you think matches take. I need to move this. There we go. How long does a normal tournament match take? What, 11 to 12 minutes, right? Let's say if we're doing only first to 2s, 60 seconds in a round, there's up to 3 rounds per match, so that's 3 minutes, and it could go up to, in a first to 2, we have to multiply that by up to 3, so 9. Let's add an extra 2 minutes to be safe, right, for like setup. 11 minutes, and then we go per round, right? Say you're doing 32-man pools. You do like 5 rounds of Swiss. That's an hour. Is that not less than it is normally for a 32-man pool for 11 minutes? Is definitely on the fast side, I'd say. Okay, let's say 15. Let's say 15. How many pounds of cheese? I don't have any cheese on right now. Let's say 15 minutes. Find out who they play, find a setup. No. Okay, well, here's the thing about Swiss. You're not looking for your setup. They call stations. They say, these 2 players, station 1, these 2 players, station 2, these 2 players, station 3. Or they put the pairings up on a big screen and you sit at those tables. You don't have a choice. You don't get to pick your setup. I'm accusing my opponent of using a rigged controller. Yeah, that's called a deck check in card games, and that usually ends up giving round extensions. Now, here's the thing. Basically, all I'm getting at, they do that in tournaments, but people still take a lot of time to figure it out. Yeah, they don't put pairings up, though, which I think would be a pretty big, like, that's actually huge. Putting up pairings would help big time, if I'm being quite honest. Like, pairings and numbers. Like, this is station 1. Take your ass to station. Your name up there says station 1. Bitch, go to station 1. I think that would actually help. Each round only goes so fast. Each round only goes as fast as the slowest 2 players. Not the slowest player, the slowest 2 players, because it's 2 people in a game, right? So, look, here's what I'm getting at. In Yu-Gi-Oh, it takes like 40 minutes per round. 50 minutes of Magic the Gathering, I think, or maybe it's 45, right? Multiply that by 5, right? It's like, and then divide by 60. Oops. It's like 3.5 hours, right? That's a long time. It wouldn't take that long in fighting games, right? Let's say at most it takes 20 minutes times 5 rounds. That is an hour and 40 minutes. That's still less than 2 hours, which is what these pools are 2-hour blocks. Like, people schedule blocks in 2-hour pools. Like, we can go look at Combo Breaker's schedule right now, and I'm almost certain it's gonna be 2-hour blocks for each pool, right? And if we're looking at 32 players, that means you need 16 setups, and then the top 4 from all 5. You play out your full 5 rounds of Swiss, and the top 4 players advance. The top 2 in higher seeding, winner side, and the top and the bottom 2 in losers bracket. And you just keep filling that out until you get to bracket style, and from bracket style, you can run first to 3, just as everyone wants. And casuals get more games because it doesn't matter if you just went 0-2 in your pool. You still have 3 more matches that you can play if you want to. There's always going to be at least one person who doesn't know what to do. That's why I put 20 minutes. It feasibly doesn't take 20 minutes. Like, if you're actually on time for your pool, it doesn't take 20 minutes. There's no way. I need to make this smaller too. One sec. I actually have that really big. I've been meaning to like shrink that. There we go. It honestly doesn't take 20 minutes to or it doesn't take 5 minutes to find out where you're supposed to be sitting, if there's numbered stations, and if there's pairings on the wall. Like if there's a paper, or if there's a big fucking screen, or even a projector with like a white wall. Like, it's super easy. Way easier. All you're doing is saying that people are stupid. If you want to say people are stupid, I'm not here to disagree with you. I wholeheartedly absolutely agree. But I think that this could be an interesting way to run tournaments. The more I think about it, the more it kind of makes sense. And it's weird because it shouldn't be, right? Because if you do this by like a point system, and it's like, if you win, you get a point. If you lose, you get no points, right? So there's only going to be, say there's 32 people. 32 people. Oh, you know what I remembered? Tiebreakers. Tiebreakers suck in Swiss. Never mind. Tiebreakers are ass. And everyone in fighting games will absolutely complain about it because people complain about it in card games. Tiebreakers are the worst. Did you play against someone who has points? Yes, you were a little higher than a person who played against someone who didn't have points. Like, okay, well, you both have 1 point. You beat them. They have 1 point. And then, like, they have to compare records versus the people that you beat if there's, like, a tie, right? So, say 8 people have wins. I don't actually know how many people would have 5 wins when it comes to, like, 32. I'd have to do the math on that. I take the win? True. Anyways, I was just thinking about this because of the fact that people are trying to figure out how to appease top players and appease casuals at the same time, because casuals are the lifeblood of the scene, but top players want a more consistent way to prove who's the best, or to prove who's playing the best that day. And I think I found it. I think this is it. If someone can work out the logistics behind it, like some other TO with like a way bigger brain than me, if you can work out the logistics for like making this work for like a 400-man bracket or like 480-man bracket, which is a multiple of 8 or 16, type it in the comment section down below. Type it on Twitter and like share my video or something. I don't fucking know. Just let everyone know how smart you are and how I had the initial idea. Anyways, this has been Beanie Thuggish for the YouTubes, talking about tournament seeding and potential differences in, you know, tournament paths and brackets due to seeding itself, the spectator experience, and how maybe we could keep everyone happy with a new format instead of going with the same old archaic thing that we've been using since the 80s. Signing out and saying peace.